What are we gonna do with Poppy's pad?
Poppy
Are we live?
Fine. No, it's still loading. Give it a sec.
All right.
We are now live, so go ahead and
All
check
right.
your thing, Dad.
I am doing it now.
I'm gonna pull that
You
up.
check your thing.
And then
Family show, Chris.
Just keep checking
it
it.
just shows everything here.
Make sure it's there.
Check it on my
Yep,
phone.
we already got it.
Oh,
Oh,
I'm shorter than you.
let me turn this down a bit here. There we go.
I'll
M18's already aboard.
apologise now, Wendy. I've got a nurse's sense of humour.
Oh, I understand.
All right, there we go. We are in service, ladies and gentlemen. 4 people already in the line. M18 has checked in. Good to see him. We'll give it just a couple more minutes to get other folks on there before I do the introductions.
So this is gonna suck because I just realized there will be an echo from you two because we're not wearing headphones because I don't have a legit mic.
Oh well.
Okay. So how's that?
We do what we do. Don't worry about it.
You got an idea, Ryan?
Where's the Y cable?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
I just realized
We're being abandoned. We're being abandoned already.
Okay.
Where are my headphones? Your pair of headphones.
I think they're in the corner there.
I'm so glad you went live when you did, Ryan.
Yeah.
I don't think we have it. Uh-oh.
I'm showing
Free souls
solidarity
back.
here.
Quotacious
I'm
is
showing
back.
solidarity. Look at this.
There you go. There you go.
So it's solidarity.
There's a new.
Oh.
Well, our new the new angle of what we're doing. Nikki, one of our admin folks, one of the folks on the executive team, has come up with a symbol for our new organization that we're going to announce in a couple weeks. So we're.
Can you hear
All
me,
right.
ladies?
Yes.
I was thinking of that as a symbol. But
We are on air. Come on, dude.
Hey! Well, you can have that.
All right. Nobody. I see a. Hey, and Ike's out there. Good to see you, buddy. Hope everybody's listening. Hi to Chris. Hi to Deb.
He's Deb
We
with
got
us
about-
tonight.
Huh?
He's Deb with us tonight. Deborah.
Deb is. Your Deborah's not. Deborah
Right.
Enzi is though.
I was
I'm
going to
assuming
say
she's
because
like.
Deborah's got a kidney stone. You know all about that.
Oh God, let's not even go there. That brings back
Tears.
shivers. Yeah, tears. That's just putting it mildly. I wish it had just been a kidney stone. If it had just been a kidney stone, I could have gotten through the pain and gotten rid of it. But that's a story for another
Oh, he could have been hard as nails. Yeah.
day. All right. All right, Ryan, Wendy, we're all ready to go. Is everybody on board here? You can hear us, Ryan, Wendy?
Can you hear me?
Awesome. All right. I can't hear you, Ryan. Mm-mm.
Hear her.
I can
Okay,
hear
that's
him.
right.
Echo.
That's right.
It's gonna echo.
Go ahead and put your earphones on. We'll just. Yeah, there's the echo there. Put your earphones on.
I can hear you.
Okay. And we could just switch off, Ryan, if we need to. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let's do this show. Hey, everybody, we're back on the air. You've heard some of our pre-show banter, but we are now officially on the air. Welcome to this episode of On the Air with Amber Hauntings. I'm your host, Larry Lawson, with my co-host and partner in crime, Christopher Huff. Say hi, Chris. He's coming to us live. County Durham, England. And over on the other screen, you see our engineer, the guy that puts us all together for us, my son Ryan, who some of you saw some pictures on my website of him and I visiting Chris over in England last summer. And the beautiful young lady with the headsets on is Wendy Walter Cano, and that is my son's betrothed, his girlfriend. We expect an announcement soon there in the not too distant future about the together of two, but we'll get into that later.
Only
I know,
if
Ryan
he
gets all
behaves
shut-
himself.
Only if he behaves. And so welcome, everybody. Glad you're here. Let's see who we got. We got M18 on, Commanding Judge Dredd, Your Honor. Good to see you. Ike, Deb, and Chrissy. I'm assuming all three of you guys are there from IDK Paranormal. Three Souls is joining us again. Good to see you. And Quotacious is with us. So good to see everybody.
That's
We're hoping
David.
David Doy, yes, I know. I'm trying to offer him some anonymity there. You know, maybe folks don't want their real name.
Well, I want anonymity then.
No, you can't. You can't. At any rate, folks, welcome to the show today. We've got a really interesting show, and you're probably wondering why Ryan's girlfriend Wendy is with us. It's kind of going to be the theme of the show tonight as we talk about people from the outside looking in, folks that probably believe in what's something else going on out there, but has never been involved in an investigation, doesn't know what it's about, doesn't even really know where to begin. So Wendy's going to be on here asking questions. She also has some really interesting stories to tell us. So this is going to be a fun show, and I hope we hear from you guys to ask some good questions too. Some shout outs, first of all, to begin our show as we always do. Got to start off with my good buddy Ike Enzi, and I think Deb, and I hope Deb and Chrissy are with him right now as they're listening. I see him on there. IDK Paranormal. He has this great show that's also on YouTube, IDK Paranormal. If you haven't seen it, please jump on there and take a look at it. It's a terrific show. He's a cop like I am. Well, former, like we both are. Was, yeah. But he talks about all the things happening out in New Mexico here in the States and all the crazy things that have happened in that part of the world. Dan Squatch just got here. No, Dan, I'm not going to repeat everything else because you're late. But Dan Squatch is now with us.
It's the late Dan Squatch, is it?
The late Dan Squatch, yeah.
All right.
So I also want to say hi to Sherry and Nikki from Doodlebug Dowsing. Those are the folks, they're part of our FBPI team, but also the only folks whose dowsing rods that we use. Doodlebug Dowsing, go see them on the internet for all your dowsing rod needs for your teams out there. And another gentleman I haven't brought up in a while, but I mentioned him in a post on my Facebook, Damien Freddy, the best storyteller in York, UK. He's at the Golden Fleece pub, and he tells some of the coolest ghost stories in one of the coolest, most haunted towns you'll find in the world, in York, in the UK. So hi to Damien Freddy. Hopefully you'll hear this, my friend. And everybody else join us. Chris, anybody you want to say hi to?
Well, you've said that Paul and David are there. Sorry, anonymity. I'm just thinking of Deborah because she's got a kidney stone.
Yeah.
So get well, Deb.
Yeah, we're thinking about you, Deb. Ryan, anybody you want to say hi to?
Say hello to Wendy. Yes, exactly.
Okay. Well, now for the next part of our show as we get going, and I think everybody on this end is going to be contributing, but I will start. It is our beer challenge. And tonight, in honor of my good friend Ike Enzi and his family, a Deutsch beer. Is that right, Ike, if I'm saying that right? This is a Optimator from Spaten, Doppelbach, out of Munich, Germany. It's imported. You can pick this up. Did that just for you, Ike. 7.6 on the alcohol level. I'll give it the first taste, and then we'll go to Chris next, and then Ryan with their beers. Let me give this taste here. Mein gut, or ist gut.
My God, it's beer.
It's really good. It's very tasty. It's a little dark. I don't know, Ike, if you know anything about this. It's about time. I know, pal. But I did this for you. You familiar with it, Ike? It's very tasty. It's a very tasty beer. Even though it's 7.6, it's not overwhelming. Very good beer. So it's Spaten by Doppelbach, Spaten Optimator by Doppelbach. I hope I get that right. Out of Spatenbrau, Munich, Germany. So that's my beer for tonight. Chris, what do you got?
Have a guess.
Yes, Dan. Ryan's old enough to drink.
Yeah.
Hobgoblin. Ooh, ruby
Hobgoblin.
red.
Oh yeah, well it is. It's a ruby beer. So, and he's got the posh pot.
The mug to go with it.
What little bit there is left, we can just say it's perfection, and that's all you need to say. It's perfection.
It is pretty good beer.
Isn't it, Ryan? It's perfection. He's not even listening. No, he can't hear. I can hear. Oh dear.
Do you want to do your beer thing or no, Ryan?
I have Guinness.
Oh.
I like Guinness.
Oh, Quotatia said, Dave, they're like spirits over beer. Well, that's true. We all like spirits. Wonder what kind of spirits you like, Dave. Okay. So what do you think about that beer, Ryan? And
I love it. It's good. I like Guinness. Apparently quite pleasant.
okay, all right. Well, let's get on with the show, guys. We've got a lot to cover tonight. Appreciate everybody joining us. The cool thing about this show and how we've kind of set it up is it's just a discussion with folks about different things involving the paranormal. And we got to thinking last week, wouldn't it be cool to get somebody on here that really doesn't have any experience in actually doing what we do and trying to find these answers?
Me.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
That's me. I've got no experience whatsoever.
No experience at all. No.
I keep getting told I don't know what I'm talking about.
Well, Wendy, on the other hand, has been with Ryan for, 4 years now? You guys been? 5 years now. Yeah. So
don't feel bad. I was with Judith for 20 before we got married.
Well, Wendy,
we just didn't see the need, and we just got married just in case anything happens.
Oh, hey, Debbie Enzi wants a hobgoblin.
Absolutely.
Hey, Debbie, good to see you too. Good to see you. She wants a hobgoblin. Trust me, Deb, you'd love it. When we come out to see you guys in New Mexico, we'll bring you some hobgoblin. But getting back to Wendy, both Ryan and Wendy are getting ready to graduate or are graduating despite the coronavirus thing from the University of Central Florida. Ryan is getting a degree in kinesiology. Is that right, Ryan? Kinesiology? Yep. Okay. And Wendy is graduating with her Bachelor of Science in Nursing. She's getting ready to take her state boards to be a registered nurse, and that will come up tonight. Very, very proud of her. And she's just a terrific part of our family, so we love her to death. But anyway, Wendy doesn't really know much about this, folks. She knows what Ryan does. She kind of sits in the periphery. There's some cultural issues we're going to talk about that kind of come into play. But we want to hear from Wendy from somebody on the outside looking in. So tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're going to ask us tonight. What do you want to know?
Sure. Okay, so hi, everyone.
Put your mic up.
Okay, there you go.
There you go. Perfect.
Hi for everyone listening. I'm Wendy. I'm Ryan's girlfriend. He actually pays me a monthly salary to date him, so that's why we've been together for 5 years.
As he should.
Excellent.
Yeah. But I've actually been a huge fan of the show. I listen every Tuesday. Now that I've graduated, I don't have as much homework. I can actually be here and have more fun than I did before. But yeah, I was born in Honduras, and I think a lot of how I was raised culturally from my parents really does affect the way that I see all of this. And just like the title says, I really have no idea what ghost hunting involves. So I really just have some questions about the process and what you look for and just how the thinking is, because this is very scientific from what I've heard on Tuesdays. This is a very
that's
scientific
what I love to hear.
thing. It's not,
Chris.
you're not just going out there and, hello, are you there? There's science behind it, which I really like.
Cool. Well, so there you have it, folks. That's going to be tonight's show.
She's just put that stick well and truly back in.
Yeah, boy, I'll tell you, that was great. But hey, if you like the show and you haven't done, you hit subscribe and hit that bell button, little bell on there, so you get notified whenever we're back on the air, because there's some other things coming in the really near future. So Wendy, talk to us. Tell me a little bit about what you want to know. Chris, I, and Ryan, let's chat about it. And anybody out there that's listening, once you hear Wendy, if you've got any thoughts about what she's asking, please let us know. I'm watching the questions come up now. So go for it, Wendy.
Yeah, so I actually have a list of questions, but I'm sure we're going to deviate a lot from it. I do listen on Tuesdays, so I do know a lot of the basic questions you've already answered before. But my first question really is about the term ghost hunting. When you refer to yourself as a ghost hunter, what does the term ghost encompass? Is it human spirits? Is it non-human spirits? Is it animal spirits? Or is it really just everything?
Well,
yes.
First thing, yes. But first, I'm going to tell you, we don't like to refer to ourselves as ghost hunters. That's a term that really came as a result of television. We prefer to look at ourselves as investigators or researchers. So the term ghost hunter is, you'll still hear us use it, but it's not a term that most of us really, really like. Now, as far as your question and what we're looking for, Chris, you want to run with that one?
Sorry.
Yeah, he's sleeping.
Sometimes it's cutting out on me. So
Okay.
all I heard was, "Do you want to run with that one?"
Okay.
So I didn't know who you were talking to.
Well, what Wendy's asking is, what do we refer to as a ghost? When we say ghost, is that the word we like to use?
Not well. You know what? I
does it
don't.
encompass? Yeah, go
Because
ahead.
it's too vague. It's far too vague. I mean, as Wendy points out herself, what does it mean? What somebody says, "I've seen a ghost." Well, and the first question you have to ask is, what did you see? What did you hear? What did you feel? And then they'll start saying, "Well, I saw this whitish form." So you can say, "Right, so you saw an apparition." Well, it might have been. So did you feel anything with it? No, I didn't feel anything. Right. Have you seen it before? Well, I've seen it a month before. Did it do the same thing? Well, yes, it did. So then you start thinking, non-sentient apparition. So it's one of these replay type apparitions rather than a sentient which just pops in and says, "Hello, I'm here," and then throws some furniture around and then moves on. The term ghost has outlived its usefulness. It really has, because we need to be, even me, who's the arch skeptic of science, acknowledges that we will never get anywhere until we start having a terminology that everybody can understand what we're talking about.
Agreed.
Over to you, Albin. Over to you.
Well, I'm looking at the term apparition. I'm looking on my cell phone right now on Google. A ghost or ghost-like image of a person.
You see, it gets back to this ghost again.
Yes, but it also uses the word image. It doesn't necessarily ghost-like image. So the term apparition is the one that you hear us more often use, Wendy. Ghost is just an old term. Geist is the German word for it. Ike, I said that for you. But it's just a general term. We really, in my opinion, I have my thoughts of what it is, but we really don't know what these apparitions, ghosts, spirits are exactly. I don't think anybody knows for sure, and that's one of the reasons why we do what we do, is to try and find out what it is. And it could be anything. I mean, there are places that see animal ghosts. There's a it's in Ohio, and it just went right out of my head. But my sister, my mom stayed there in Ohio. It's down near Cleveland. They've got a ghost cat. Chris likes to tell a favorite story about a ghost dog at an RAF airfield.
Which one?
Well, it was Guy Gibson's dog. Guy Gibson's black
Nick,
lab.
Yes. I'm not allowed to say the name, am I?
No, and I
won't let me.
Can't say the name. Nope. It was a name that was used back in the 40s, and it's considered derogatory now, but it was a black lab. And that dog has shown up several times. In fact, he commanded a squadron that did the famous Dam Buster raid in Germany in the Ruhr Valley in the late 40s. I think it was 44, wasn't it, Chris?
43.
43. And that dog died just before the mission began, but that dog keeps coming back. So dogs are certainly...
The poor black Labrador with the embarrassing name was buried at the time that Gibson's Lancaster was over the target, outside his office. Mm-hmm. There's something very dodgy going on there, and I've never got to the bottom of it. But yeah, so it's very interesting. The dog has been seen probably 100 times.
Oh, wow. So ghosts come in all forms. I mean, and there are some folks that may even say that the spirit or the figure they see or that they call a ghost could be something that was inhuman to begin with. Although
they do exist, yes. There are things which have never been human.
Is there a way to tell them apart? Like, for example, if you come in contact with a human spirit and a non-human one, would there be a way to tell if it was human? Like, what would tell them apart?
It's not always as easy as you think. You get certain religious types who keep saying, "Oh, well, it must be a demon," and you see these television programs and everything's a demon. It just makes me want to hit my head against a wall. Demons are not common, but I do believe they exist because I've had some experience. When we say things which haven't been human, you're talking nature spirits.
Correct.
You're talking aliens. You're talking almost anything under the sun. The common phrase I use is "shit happens." Because as soon as you start to think, oh, I'm starting to understand what's going on with this, something comes along and you think, no, I don't understand a word of it anymore. It's all been proved wrong.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing I will say is often they don't behave in a human-like way. They don't have human values. So they might just think it's very funny to lead you into a bog, for example. Just something like the will o' the wisp. Do you have will o' the wisps over there?
Yeah, but bogs is not a word we commonly use. A swamp, Wendy, would be
Right.
similar to a bog.
Right. We have sort of lights which go tripping off into the bog, into the swamp, and people follow them and they end up in quicksand and all other sorts of nasty things. And I don't think you're talking something human there. I think you're actually talking something nature spirit or something completely different. It's not a topic I particularly study, but yeah,
That's really
there are.
interesting, though. That's really interesting that there's so many different, like different kinds of spirits to take in account for.
They're really. I mean, we also have things called durgars, which are sort of cannibalistic dwarves up in the hill. Well, I'm talking legends more than actual dwarves. Up, I hope we're talking legends anyway. Cannibalistic dwarves is not something to go up into Northumberland about. But yes, we've got those. We've got the grey man of Scottish mountains. Paul will tell me which ones if he gets round to it. These appear in fog, and people go chasing after them, and they'll come to a sort of sticky end by running off the edge of a precipice or something in the fog. We have all sorts. Then we've got the black. You've heard of the black sharks, the black dogs?
No.
No?
I have.
Oh, right.
I have.
Yeah. We've got an awful lot of these. They're supposedly black dogs, but bigger than an ordinary dog, with commonly described as having eyes the size of saucers which burn yellow. A lot of the accounts are hostile in that something will happen to you. A number of them they're taken as death omens, that you will die within a certain time. Some are beneficial. There was one of a certain part of Britain down in the southwest where they used to say that this dog, the Gert dog, would take care of children if they got lost on the moorlands. So they do different things. They're all these nature spirit type things are very unpredictable.
That's actually
But if
really
any-
interesting. In Honduras, there's actually a legend about dogs as well. And there is a black dog that comes at midnight every night. And just like you said, it has the big eye.
Big saucer
And
eyes.
correct.
Interesting.
And it attacks anyone who's out partying or drinking or doing bad things.
Yeah.
That spirit is going to follow them home. And then during the day, there's another dog spirit that brings all the good things. And like you said, protects children. So that's really interesting.
I find it very interesting that these folk legends appear all around the world. They're not limited to England. They're not limited to the United States, Honduras, Africa. They're all over the world. People are seeing these things, and we've got folk legends. For anyone to sort of say, oh, it just doesn't exist, you've just got to start reading and seeing how many of these accounts there are from all over the world. Something is going on.
And that's the biggest thing about this whole field. It's not just coming from a few people or a few people from a certain caste. They're all educated, college educated, high school educated, professional. All walks of life have experienced this in all the countries of the world for as long as there's been written records. So, truthfully, really interesting. What are the reasons why I do it? There's got to be an answer to this. Got another question, Wendy? Something else you'd like to know?
Oh, sure. So an environment, are there certain aspects in an environment that would make it more prone to haunting? Because, for example, in my country, they believe that limestone, if there's limestone in your house, it attracts spirits, or if there's running water nearby, it would attract energies. So is there any truth to that from what you've seen, that certain environments would attract hauntings?
Go on, Larry. This one's for you.
Yeah. There's a lot of not enough study on it the way I'd like to see it, but there's been a lot of documentation of everything from limestone. Limestone's very common. Definitely running water. There are actually stories of running water fueling spirit guides way back into the Native American days here in this country. Limestone, what's the granite, quartz? I know Ike out in New Mexico. What is it you guys have out there? Is it limestone? I believe that it is. That does attract it. I mean, think about it. Certain rocks do attract and keep energy. You got a quartz watch. It's a piece of quartz that keeps your watch running. It all has to do with the collection and the release of energy. So yes, that is a very common theme here in this country. We look for running water. We look for certain types of stone. No question about it. Chris?
Me?
Chris?
Oh,
yeah. What's your thoughts on that?
There's a correlation between wells and hauntings. There's a definite correlation. There is folk belief that spirits can't follow you across running water. There's something to this. If somebody brings me an object which has got an attachment to it, I can try and get them to. The first thing you do is break the attachment. The second thing you do is run it under running water, and that removes anything from it. Running water is very good. What else were we talking about? Sorry, I concentrated.
Just that. I got
rocks,
a couple of
rocks. There's a relationship between granite, metamorphic rocks, and UFO sightings. We've got an area just up the road from us where we've got a granite intrusion, and we get UFO sightings over it.
Oh wow!
Very common.
Interesting.
Whether you can say you get more ghost sightings over a particular type of strata, I don't know. We then start going to the big arguments that Larry and I have about how these things occur.
Yeah. I wouldn't call them big arguments, but Ike brings something. Gold, silver, and copper are things that he noted as being conduit. And Dan Clarkson, Dan Squatch, brings up a really good thing that I should have mentioned, and that's residual haunts are oftentimes found stored in limestone and quartz. Now, what a residual haunt, Wendy, is it's like a recording that's stored and played over. And Chris and I have had some really interesting discussions on this, but it's almost like the energy of the event is stored in something that can keep energy. And then the residual haunt is that energy coming out and playing over at a certain time and playing over at a certain time. And when you see a residual haunt, it's basically the same thing every time. The figure's walking from point A to point B. You yell, you scream. It doesn't act like it can hear you. It just goes to the other side and disappears. A week later, it does the same thing, maybe at the exact same time of day or something along those lines. So residual haunts are believed to be held in things that can store energy, such as limestone or quartz.
That's really cool. That's super
Yeah.
cool. So, for example, let's say there's a house that you know is haunted, and if the house gets demolished, would the spirit remain in the house, or would it disappear completely as the house is broken down, or does it haunt something else? Like, what happens to a spirit when it's attached to an object?
Now, you're definitely talking spirits and not a memory. You're definitely talking spirits.
Mm-hmm.
The simple answer is they can do what the hell they want to do. That is the simple answer. Some aren't even haunting the house, they're haunting the ground, because that's where they had a house before the house. Some lived in that house and they will haunt the ground afterwards because that's where the house was. Some will actually take up residence in the new house because this is where their house was. And they'll cause all sorts of trouble because as they see it, it's still their house. This is where their house was. How dare you take my... I get this so often when I move them on. How dare you take my house from me? How dare you do this? How dare you move my furniture around? I'm not letting go of this. This is my house. This is... all the time. All you're hearing from is me, mine, mine, mine. And once you can actually break that, then you can move them, and they'll pass over. Doesn't mean to say they stay there. This goes down all sorts of rabbit holes. This one.
It does.
Sorry.
Oh, it does.
Really goes.
Well,
it opens up. But all I can say is they'll do what the damn hell they feel like doing. That's the simple answer. I mean, I cannot predict what they'll do. Some will just sort of say. Some will get very sad. Some will start crying, and everyone will comment when they walk into a room. My, it feels sad. It feels horrible in here. Some will make it feel cold because they just don't want anyone else in there. Others will get really angry and they'll start poking people and kicking cats and kicking dogs and all sorts of things. You can't predict what they're going to do.
We actually had a house, Wendy, Evan helped us locally here in Vero, where our best guess at this point is it appears that the house is a portal. And what we meant is the folks that were in there thought that they had a relative that was there. Don't have enough time to go into it now, but we were able to determine that really wasn't the case. And Evan, through his abilities, kind of got the impression there was an opening there. And literally, spirits were coming through and just passing through. And the only person that stayed there was a gatekeeper, so to speak, but none of them had any relation to the house.
Had they been doing silly things there with Ouija boards, etc.?
No.
Interesting.
No. The guy's a cop and pretty squared away.
But before him?
Yes. Yeah. Before him, no, we don't know. We don't know. There's no indication there was. But many times it's the land. We had a building, probably the oldest house in Fellsmere, that had nothing in it, but Evan again felt the presence of the Ais Indians watching us. Once again, they were protecting the land. Folks get that big mistake. I built this house. How could it be haunted? Nobody's died here. I'm the only one that's ever lived here. It's the land. It is the land that can be affected. I mean, so
how the other question is how long do these apparitions? We'll just go for apparitions here, and it's going to mean everything under the sun. But how long do these apparitions last for? Well, our oldest one in this country is Bronze Age, and you're talking 1500 BC. Oh, wow. And it's a horseman which emerges from one of the barrows down in the West Country, and it's allegedly still being seen. So 1500 BC, 2,500 years old? No, 3,500 years old, and it's still going. So now, what the status of this is, whether it's a sentient or non-sentient, that's anyone's guess. I'd have to see it and see if I could talk to it and tell it to bugger off. I don't know. Until you actually make contact with it, you can't tell.
I'm going to back up just a little bit here because Tank Destroyer asked what caused the residual haunting, and Dan gave a very interesting theory. Dan Squatch says that once the item is stored, it's stored and collects up and kicks the recording on. That's as good a theory as any. But residuals.
The most common switch, we'll use the term switch, is building work.
Yeah,
that's the most common.
Construct and redecorating things like
As soon as you start affecting the structure of a house, taking a brick out, changing a fireplace, something like that, something will kick off. And up to that point, you wouldn't even know there was something there. But start doing building, not decorating, not painting, not X, Y, and Z. Actually touch the fabric of the house or start doing something in the gardens. Then this will kick off. It's interesting.
Interesting. Next question, ma'am.
Yeah, sure. So this is more of a personal question, but I've always wondered, because you are in tune with everything that's happening, with apparitions, like you said, how does that change the way that you see life and death? Does it provide you comfort, or does it make you more anxious?
Wow, that's going to be that's going to be a much different answer for me than you get from Chris. So I'll let Chris go first.
No, go on. You go first. Go on, because I'm going to contemplate that one.
I do not have the gift that Chris does, or even Evan does. I like to say I'm sensitive as a rock. So saying that, I've seen and experienced so many different things involving the paranormal over the last 40 years, actually, that I know there's something else out there. I have my theory that it is life after death, but we don't know for sure yet. Okay, we don't know for sure what it is, but it does give me personal comfort that there's something that we're going to go to after that, whether it's heaven as we talk about it in the typical Christian religion, or it's different planes. That remains to be seen, and it may be a combination of both because we don't know those answers yet. But it gives me personally a bit of comfort knowing that this is not it. Maybe I'm going to get a chance to go back and right my wrongs and fix my mistakes and do something a little bit better next time and avoid other goof ups. I don't know. But it gives me comfort that this is not the end of it. Your turn, Christopher, or Ryan, if you want to jump in.
Yeah, come on, Ryan.
Ryan's not going to jump in, so Chris, it's you. He's chickening out on us. Oh, here we go.
No, he's going for it. He's going for it. Go on, man.
Oh, here I come. You can actually hear me for once. All right. I mean, for me, I don't. Maybe it's just because I'm young. I don't think about it too much. I mean, even though I've done stuff like this for a while, I mean, my answer is going to be closest to you, Dad, I think. Meaning, like, okay, it's not just going to be a black abyss or just flat nothing for the rest of eternity. At least it could be something. And I mean, I am Christian. I'm not going to deny it. I feel like there's something more past everything. Where these spirits are, I don't know. But we'll see when we get to the end. But I'm pretty neutral, to be honest.
You're too chill, Ryan. That's your.
He doesn't change, does he? He really doesn't change.
That's my curse. I'm a very general person.
This is the Ryan I met in York.
IDK Ike over there out in New Mexico made a comment. Also, changing the land can stir up some residual stuff going back.
Absolutely, yeah.
Changing anything will do it. And Dan, as being a comedian, he says, I absorb, he calls me a limestone rock, I think, Danny. Oh, Danny, what am I going to do with you? You absorb residual energy. No, I don't, Dan. Anyway, Chris, what's your answer to Wendy's question? How does this affect you?
I'm still having a trouble formulating an answer. I really am. As you and Ryan have both experienced, I can talk to the other side. I know within me, I know that it exists because I see them all the time. And every day I still think, come on, you're making it up. It's all imagination. Because there's still that within, even though I see this and I get all this information and I'll tell people like Ike about his house, I'm saying who died there of asphyxiation. How can I know this? And yet, even then, I still think, nah, come on, you must be making it up. You can't do this. I think it's because so many people have had a go at me in the past about this that's become my attitude. Deep down, I know it exists. Attitude, has it changed my life? It caused a breakdown, but that's not something I'll discuss on there. But I'll tell you later, Wendy, if you want to hear about the breakdown, because it was in a hospital that caused it.
While you were working in the hospital?
While I was in the middle of an operation.
Oh, lovely.
Not me being operated on, but I was a scrub nurse, so it was right in the middle of an operation. Does it make me positive? I honestly don't know. It makes me think I don't care. And that is so stupid, isn't it? I'm not worried at all about dying. Full stop. As long as it's not painful, I don't care. Is there something afterwards? I don't care. If there is, whoopee. And if there isn't, I'm not going to know anything about it. So I'm sort of despite everything, I'm very ambivalent about things. The only thing I think I can say is it's made me calmer about things. Just calmer, that I can deal with it. This it's like this overcoat you get as a nurse to death. You can deal with it. You can go and talk to the relatives about it. It happens. It's just part of life. It's just more so because I have to deal with the spirits and pass them on from the next level. You just get like an overcoat that you just deal with it, and you just become calm. And I think that's the best.
Yeah.
The only thing I can say, you become calm. So it's beneficial. It's very beneficial, but you just become, well, sometimes it's not beneficial. But when you meet some of the things that I've seen, I'll get told it's not beneficial at all because it really screws you up. But by and large, yeah, I'm calmer for it. You wouldn't have liked to have met me when I was a teenager.
Bobby Garcia, Judge Garcia out there in New Mexico, was making a comment about law enforcement deals and nurses are going to be the same way. Wendy, I know you're already kind of in that mindset and heading down that way. We see life and death completely differently. Yeah. And I know Bobby, Ike, we've all seen Chris. We've seen death come in some pretty horrific ways, mm-hmm. and we almost become numb to it. So, Bobby, I absolutely agree with you. We do look at life and death differently, and I think that's something that's helped me a little bit, Wendy, is I think I've got an edge up over somebody that's never come across a body that's a murder, suicide, a drowning. Yeah. We just look at things differently because it's part of what we've dealt with so very often. So, next question, ma'am.
Well, thank you for responding to that last question, by the way. I know it was personal, so just thank you for being honest. And
oh, that's not personal. No, you can get far more personal than that. It's all right.
You may not like it.
So my next question is, let's say, like, for example, Larry, you knew that this was something that you were interested in. How did you learn about the tools to use and just about strategies to investigate the paranormal?
Excellent question.
This is yours, old chap. This is yours.
Yeah. This, for me, it was trial and error. I mean, I saw my first full-bodied apparition in the Dade County Jail in 1980. I was a young corrections officer. I was just barely 20 years old. And I saw it, and I knew darn well what I saw. There was no question about it. We've talked about it a couple of times in the show. About a few of them last week. So most of it's just trial and error, and then realizing, and then just having a common sense approach to a lot of it. If you listen to what your own body, your own mind's saying, and then you also realize how to treat people, how to treat venues, and then you add that with learning about the equipment, it begins to come together. The easiest thing a person can do, the best thing I should say a person can do if they're wanting to get into this field, is find somebody that has the appropriate values and learn from them. Watch and learn and ask questions. Study where you can. There's lots of books out there, and there's tons of different ways to do things. And they're not all. There may be 3 ways to do something, and they're all correct, right? But just learning the right way. If you have the desire to find the answer, if you have the drive, work, that's when you'll see success. If you're doing it just for fun, it'll be cool for a year or so, and then you'll get tired of it. So that's my answer to that question.
Thank you.
So how do I learn? Hubris. Because when I was 16, I thought I knew everything. Absolutely everything. Ask me a question on the paranormal, I'll tell you everything you need to know about it. And then slowly over time, the spirits kick the stool out from under you time and time and time again. So the power of hubris. And eventually you learn, I don't know anything. I literally don't know anything. I'm still finding it all out. And every time I think I know something, they kick that stool out again. And that anybody who tells you they're an expert in this field, they're lying. And you've got to start thinking, why are they lying to me? And usually it's because we're experts, so we're only going to charge you so much.
Well, and sometimes people are very self-indulgent.
Well, yes, self-indulgent.
Nobody knows all the answers one day. I'm going to tell you that right now. I mean, Some of us have more experience than others maybe at doing some things, but nobody is truly an expert in this field, because if they were, we'd have the answers, wouldn't we? We would know for sure what's going on.
Some have got more experience, and I always get this little voice comes and talks to me and says, yeah, you've been doing it for 50 years and you've been doing it wrong. Yeah. You see what I mean? It's that kicking the stool out again. They kick the stool out from under me all the time. Stop being a big head. Stop saying you know everything.
A little bit of advice, Wendy, and this goes not only for this field, but police work and everything else. If you find somebody that tells you they have all the answers, they know everything, they're either a liar or a fool, or maybe both.
Or both, yeah.
Nobody knows all the answers. So I got a quick question from David. He says, do you find, and Wendy, I'd love to hear your thought on this too, do you find that spirits are more likely to be somebody who was killed, murdered, or somebody who died naturally? I don't think it matters. I think a violent death does have a tendency to maybe have somebody stick in a certain spot, but I've dealt with just as many naturals as I have murders. What do you say, Chris?
Yes. That's the simple answer. Yes. Anything. Yeah. It comes back to my phrase, shit happens. It could be anything. And getting back to the murders, which is something that we want to do coming up in the future, it's not always the victim who's haunting the murder site.
Amen.
And that if you look at serial killers, they like going back. And so it's not always the victim who haunts the murder site.
Yeah.
And this is something I'm very interested in.
You will see us, and folks, you're going to see us exploring this on this show in the not too distant future, hopefully in real time.
When we were allowed out, that is.
Yeah, once we get out, too. You got any thoughts on that one, Wendy? I mean, what did you have a preconceived notion on that? A lot of people think of a ghost as a result of somebody that died violently and they can't leave, and that's really truly a misconception. But
I think it can be any of the above, honestly, because a big thing culturally, spirits, culturally in my country, what we think spirits are either someone who have unresolved issues, or they haven't been good enough to move on or bad enough to move on. And then some spirits don't even know they've passed. So let's say someone did die in their sleep naturally, they can wake up as a spirit and not know that they have passed. So I think it really is individual to each spirit or energy. It really depends.
So she's talking total sense. Total and utter sense. Yeah. Well, you have you noticed the feeling in hospital? You've witnessed death in hospitals.
Yes. I worked in hospice for 2 years.
Right. Yeah. Have you noticed at the point of death or just slightly afterwards, there's this something's missing?
Yes.
I can't get this over to someone who hasn't witnessed it, but you look at the body and you just say, something's missing from empty. 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, it feels completely empty.
It's completely and utterly. You can't get this over to someone who hasn't witnessed it.
Yeah, and I've actually told Ryan that even the weight of the room feels different.
It really does.
Yeah, you look at them and they honestly look like a shell. Like something was in there before and it's not there anymore.
Yeah, the spark has gone.
Yes.
Yeah, we had. I poo-pooed this for. Do you have poo-pooed in your language? I didn't believe.
There's a place for that. There's a place for that term. Yeah.
I didn't believe when somebody told me, but down on the south coast, I was told that the spirits, the dead, go as the tide turns and goes out, and I didn't believe. Yeah, south coast in England. I didn't believe it. This was in the sea bathing hospital, and we had someone chain stoke. You know, chain stoking.
Oh, yes. The respiration.
It's just, the respiration. They're just gone. Nothing else there. It's just chain stoking. It's this breathing. And it kept going and going and going. And this old, experienced auxiliary on the ward was just telling me, you wait until the tide turns. They'll go. And then you could always tell the tide turning because it made a different sound. And she opened the window when the tide turned and he went.
Oh wow!
It was unbelievable. This is one of the sort of hubris moments. I knew all about this. Well, I didn't know all about it because it did happen. So, but it's fascinating that all these things happen. But you can also walk into a room where somebody has died and you can still feel they're there.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, so it's such sometimes they're completely gone within 5 minutes, and other times they're there for weeks and weeks, and then all of a sudden they'll go or move on, or somebody comes in and they go with them, or they wait for something. There's an awful lot of them waiting for something. You just got to find out what they're after.
Now, Wendy, I know you, but before you started nursing school, you worked in a couple of other healthcare facilities. Now you've had some time. You've done your rotations. You've completed everything to be an RN. Graduating, I was so looking forward to seeing you at your graduation. But so tell me, what kind of experiences have you had? Have you had any experiences that you really don't know how to explain?
I've had two big ones that kind of left me with my mouth open, because there was just no explanation. But I worked in hospice for 2 years, and there was an instant, I won't mention names for privacy, but
No,
Please.
there was an instance where there was this older resident, and her grandson would come visit her every single afternoon. So one afternoon he didn't show up, and his mom came to me because I was in charge of her that day and said, "We don't want to tell his grandmother because she is not in a good state of mind. We don't want to tell him that he drowned."
Mm-hmm.
And so no one had told her anything, and I said, "Okay, we won't tell her." And then that afternoon when I'm with her, she's talking. She's speaking to someone, and I said, "Who are you speaking with?" And she said, "It's my grandson. He came to be with me, and he explained that he was at the beach and he drowned, and he said that we'll be leaving tomorrow morning."
Mm-hmm.
And the next morning she was gone. And it was just crazy that
Wow.
she knew about him, and she said, he told me to just get ready, and we're leaving together. And then that next morning she was just gone, and it was just crazy.
Wow, that's a pretty significant event, and you're sure nobody had gotten word to her what happened?
No one had gotten word to her, like anything that
Wow.
happened. Yeah.
See, how do you explain that? For
Yeah,
for
you
those
can't.
folks that just say, for those that this can't happen, it's a figment of your imagination. How do you explain something like that? And you're not even a person that's really involved in this type of work, but you saw it. So that's fascinating stuff. I just want to mention real quick, we've got a couple folks out here. Bobby Garcia talks about from family, friends, and other experts, but he believes that reaching out and making your own decisions is, in his opinion, the best way to do it. Ike out there at IDK Paranormal talks about the feeling of emptiness that you mentioned there. It's even true when animals pass, you can feel the emptiness as the soul or essence of life, or whatever you want to call it, is gone. And man, that's so true. And yeah, that is so true. And Kramer, Ryan, is the one that Kramer comes to mind on that. Our dog Kramer. Oh, I haven't thought about him in a while, but yeah. Chris Costa agrees. Good to see you, Chris. Thanks for joining us tonight. He agrees very much, and he can relate to exactly what everybody's saying. So just wanted to get those guys out there. Anything else in a hospital? Have you had any other experiences in a hospital, Wendy?
I had another experience where we had a new resident coming in that day. And when she came in, she was very flustered and afraid, and she just kept saying that someone was going to get her, and that she was going to be gone by that afternoon. And so they just kind of gave her, a little bit of medication. She calmed down, and she was saying that she was going to pass, and that both of the ladies to the right room next to her, and then the left one next to her, they were going to go with her. And so that afternoon, the woman passed, and then an hour later the lady to the right passed away, and then an hour later the lady to the left passed away. And it was just
Oh,
crazy because one of the ladies who passed, she was actually being discharged home. She was a lot better, and they just all passed away within 3 hours of each other.
how do you explain
Interesting.
that?
Yeah.
A question for you, Chris.
I've got one for you, which you might like. It didn't happen to me. It happened to another nurse on nights at Ramsgate Hospital, which is on the south coast again. And I can't remember when it was, but she was writing up her Cardex, the report on the patients in the night. Slept well, blah 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 blah. And she looked up because the room went cold, and there was a woman, a nurse, in front of her, who just said, "Mrs. Jones, third bed on the left, has just died." And then this nurse vanished.
Oh my gosh.
I thought you might like that.
I would clog out.
She was in a bit of a state about this, as you can imagine. But yeah, it happened. All these weird things happen. All these absolutely weird things happen. You get like you keep saying, Larry, this cop's intuition.
Yeah.
You get the same thing on wards.
Yeah.
You get this feeling that someone up there on the left, I've got to go for a walk around the ward because something's happening, and they're starting to go off into a heart attack or something. You just get this premonition.
Yeah,
you cannot know, but you just get this feeling. Somebody's telling you somewhere that go and have a look at them.
Now, Wendy, early in your career here, have you had any of the more experienced nurses that you've worked with in rotations? Have they ever mentioned anything like this? Have you heard anybody, and even when you're working at hospice or in the retirement home, has anybody ever talked to you about this or given you their opinion?
I think where I've gotten the most opinion, I did some rotations in an inpatient psych unit, and they had a lot of stories to tell. And the inpatient psych unit where I worked, the bottom, like underground, there was actually an underground area where a lot of people committed suicide at the same time. And I had the chance, there was a director of nursing, and he actually gave us a tour underground. And it was just terrifying, like just the feeling that I couldn't go under there just because it felt so different. And everything had been left as is, so there was nothing modern to it. It was just completely untouched from the day that it happened. And in the same hospital, there was a room that they don't admit patients into because someone hung themselves in that room. And every patient after that who went into that room ended up dying mysteriously.
Oh,
so
nasty.
There's actually a whole room in the hospital that I went to that no one was allowed to be put into because of that. And the nurses there were very open about, what they believed it was. And
well, two questions. First of all, you have to tell me off the air what that hospital is, because I got to try and make contact. But the second thing is, and I'm going to be kind of a skeptical question. How much do you think the feelings that you guys were getting were the result of the stories that you'd heard? Or do you think that didn't influence anything at all?
The director of nursing, he actually didn't tell us what happened underground until afterwards.
Oh.
Yeah,
because
he wanted to know.
There you go.
Yeah, he wanted to know how we felt about it. And
Excellent.
just as we were going down the stairs, you could just feel this dread and this heaviness. I couldn't go down any further. And then that's when he told me, that's kind of strange that you feel that way because this is what happened.
Ooh, very good, very good.
It's kind of mean of him to do that.
You want to go there, don't you, Larry?
Oh, man, I'm in. We're going to be talking later, Wend. Tank Destroyer talks about it. He wonders how haunted morgues are.
Yes.
Got to be active there.
Yes. Sea Bathing Hospital. I've mentioned this one. I'm sure I have. That's the one where I heard the babies crying in the baby ward, which had been turned into offices. So the sea bathing was built in the 1700s. It had a baby ward, a children's ward, adults ward, male, females. It was ostensibly a TB curing hospital, what you'd call a sanatorium.
We called them sanatoriums back in the day here, yeah.
Yeah. But the baby ward was shut a long, long while ago and turned into just offices for the secretaries. And people would say, oh, if you go past there at a certain time of night, etc., you'll hear the babies crying. And I was thinking, yeah, that's seagulls. Until I bloody well heard them. And there was just no mistaking it. Babies crying, and it wasn't seagulls. Anyway, the mortuary. What we used to find is, because I was one of the big strapping lads in the hospital on night duty, the porters would come and get me to give them a hand taking the bodies down. partly because it was right at the end of the hospital, out in the grounds where the chapel was. They didn't want to go out there on their own just in case there were drunks or druggies or anything lurking. I wonder what on earth that was. Sorry, that was the cat. So I used to get the job of going down with them. And periodically you'd find that you'd put a body in on the trolley the night before, and the head would go towards the far wall and the feet towards the door. And you go in the next night, and it's been turned around, and nobody's been in there.
Oh my god.
Yeah, they're just turned around, or they're sideways on. And sideways on, it was a really tight sort of fit, and you'd have a real job getting these trolleys turning sideways on, and you'd find them at all sorts of funny angles. So something was going on there. But Dover Hospital, one of the ones, Buckland Hospital, we used to, not mortuary, but theatres. We had a parking bay for the trolleys. After theatres are finished for the night, yeah, you do have emergency theatres, but after the day's scheduled lists, all the trolleys would be parked up neatly outside. And then half an hour later, you could go back down. Nobody's been in the area, and they were all over the place. They were just, something was moving them. So you put them all back again, go back down an hour later, they've been moved again. This happened all the time. All the time. Unfortunately, that hospital's been demolished, but I have got an EVP session coming out from there at some stage when I get round to it.
We will look forward to that. I tell you a real life story. This has nothing to do with paranormal, but I know. And Bobby asked if I remember my first autopsy as a cop. Oh, very much so.
Oh yeah.
But
you never forget that one.
Never forget that one. That's a whole. If anybody ever tells you to go to an autopsy, put Vicks Vapor Rub under your nose to get rid of the smell, it's a fallacy. Trust me. Well, no, it doesn't open up the pores. But I did want to mention is you haven't lived until you've picked up a body. Here comes some of that cop scallow humor we talked about, and suddenly the body moves, but the person's dead, and it's the body contracting. Yeah, that makes for some interesting conversation, to say the least.
Or you turn them over and they suddenly go.
Oh yeah,
The first time you do that as a sort of first or second warder, oh my word, you go through the ceiling.
Oh, we could go into some serious stories here, but this is not the forum to do it.
You sure? Because it's all linked.
Anyway, would you guys believe it? We've reached our time for tonight.
What?
An hour has, yes, I know. Hard to believe, isn't it?
How fast it goes. It's terrible, isn't it?
It's terrible, but it's great because, Wendy, you've brought up some really good questions.
Yeah.
You're looking from the outside in, and, a lot of the stuff we kind of just take for granted, but it's nice to talk about it, and it also jars some memories for us, as well as, hey, I need to maybe think about that next time we go out. I do want you to keep your eyes and ears open in the hospital, though, especially if you hear some stuff. And we're going to talk about that other place in the not too distant future. And folks, once again, if you're enjoying this, get your friends to join us. Get on the show, get out here Tuesday nights, or watch it when they can. Most importantly, hit subscribe and hit like. And we're getting real close to the century mark in subscribers, so let's push that so we can get there. There's a pair of doodlebug dowsing rods for a drawing that we're going to do when we hit that century mark. So people, if you haven't subscribed, please do. Also, if you have any thoughts or comments, that's something you want us to bring up, you can reach me at ghostguy59@gmail.com. Send me your questions or thoughts there, and we'll try and get them on the air. Anybody else that wants to join us, please have them do so. We've got some big things coming up. It's going to be in about 2 or 3 weeks. We're going to be making some really important announcements, and I want to reach as many people as possible. I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. It's pretty much the usual crowd, but let's get out there and get some more folks info if you can. IDK Paranormal, my good buddy Ike out there in New Mexico, Moriarty, New Mexico. I think that's where you're at, right, Ike? Moriarty? And then, of course, my good buddy Chris up there in County Durham, England. In case you don't know it, the man stays up until 1 o'clock in the morning live for us to do this show. So
do some of the watchers. David and Paul do as well, and I'm so impressed.
Absolutely. We really appreciate it. Thanks, Bobby. Appreciate that, buddy. So join us next time, folks. We'll be back next Tuesday with another show. If you haven't subscribed, do so tonight. Get some other folks to subscribe, and we will see you next week. Oh, do you want to mention your new website, Chris, for folks to find? No. Okay.
No.
But Spirit Research
No
Northeast
longer exists.
no longer exists. Very sad about
No
that.
longer exists. Lots and lots of people told me exactly what I was in no uncertain terms. And then somebody jumped in and hacked my account, so I had to shut everything down. So apologies to the 1,300 subscribers I had, and apologies to all those nice people, but it had to go.
Yeah, well, anyway, you can still find his stuff up there on his website, and you're not going to tell us what your website is?
No.
Come on, Howard. Okay, we'll get it to you. Anyway, folks, we're done. Wendy, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having
It was a great
me.
show.
Yeah, you're coming back. I warn you. You're coming back. You don't get away that easy.
Well, folks, until we see you next week on Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern, take care, be careful, give somebody a hug, tell your friend you love them, and we'll see all of you next week on the other side. Have a good night.